Thank you, gentlemen and guns. Coming.
Hey guys, it's Bert. Don't fast forward. Listen to me for 1 second. My book is so close to being on the national bestseller list. So if you haven't, please do me a favor. Stop right now. Go to bertcast.com and buy a copy. They are in stores, but this needs to happen before Saturday at midnight. So if you love me, if you love this podcast, if you like my stand-up and you enjoy Trip Flip, let me put the moniker best-selling author in front of my name. It would be the greatest honor, and you can help me do that. So please, go to bertcast.com. And if you've already bought my book, thank you so much. I love you with all my heart. And now, without further ado, stand-up comedian, podcaster, Sirius XM radio host, author himself, Greg Fitzsimmons.
This is Bertcast.
I wish I had someone to run my podcast like Joe does, because I feel like I do spend the majority of my podcast panicking that I'm not recording.
Right.
You know?
I know. I check mine constantly while I'm doing it. No, fuck that, though. I don't, it's somebody.
I don't want someone in here. That's the only problem is, like, Red Band kind of fits in that equation.
Are we doing the podcast now?
Yeah, we're doing it. It's not like yours. There's no, like, I'm not a really good interviewer. In the Mancave, the person that killed the hardest at the Cowhead Roast, easily, without a doubt.
Oh, Jesus. Was that fun?
Fuck yes.
That was fun as shit.
And I had to follow him, Greg Fitzsimmons.
The crazy thing was, here you are in Tampa, which, no offense to Tampa, but it's not like Chicago or New York or L.A., and all of a sudden you got Norton there, and you're there, and Florentine.
Bobby Kelly.
I mean, it was just a fucking... I bet you they reached out like, fuck it, we might as well ask. And every one of us was like, we're in.
Yeah. Yeah, I just... I was in Orlando doing my show.
Right, that worked out.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, I'll fucking pop over real quick.
Yeah.
I would have popped over anyway, but when I found out all you guys were going to be there, I was like, okay, I'm definitely fucking going.
Yeah, he just texted me and he's like, do you want to come to a roast to me? And I was like, dude, I literally have tickets on hold to go to Mexico because that's our kid's spring break.
Yeah.
I wish I could. And then he texts me back. He's like, come out, we'll get you tickets to, Busch Gardens and Universal. And I was like, fuck. My sister was coming down to see my mom in Florida.
Yeah.
So we just switched it over, and then you ended up being there, and you upgraded. He was going to get me some shit tickets, and you got me like the fast pass, front of the line, fast track.
You cannot do You can't do Universal Orlando without fast track.
I got to tell you, that was the highlight of the trip. That Universal Orlando is so badass.
Yeah, it genuinely is. Did you do Spider-Man?
My kids did. I didn't.
It's the most insane ride I've ever been on in my entire life.
Really?
It redefines how roller coasters are made, and all I'm thinking is, in 10 years, I'll still be old enough to ride them. I'm not going to have heart problems yet.
Right.
But I'm telling you, it's going to, once they can incorporate that, what they're doing with Spider-Man, which is basically, what's the technology where it's all around you?
Vibrators.
Yeah, but no, but it's like, it's the seats.
Fleshlight.
No. No, what's the TV?
3D.
It's 3D.
4D.
It's almost 4D because it's
Scratch
fires
and sniff.
Fires going at you. They have smells. They have burnt rubber when you take off.
Ladder 49.
And when they do that with like a top thrill dragster, close. All right. Yeah, that was the greatest way to do it. All right. Now so I was like, I can't have Greg over here and not have questions that I want to know as a fan.
Hey. Yep. There we go. This is fun because I've had you on my podcast a couple times.
Yeah.
And so the dynamic is very different now because I'm used to being able to ask you stuff as a fan of yours and being very much like intrigued by the mythology of you and then realizing that there's a whole other guy in there besides that guy who's insecure and self-loathing and thinks he's fat. You think you're fat.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. And I think I did something to my liver this last week. Because I have a pain in my side. But so now, okay, let's start. My number one, I want to talk about Boston. I want to talk about you not drinking. I want to talk about your start in comedy. But the thing that most fascinates me, the first time you did Stern, and was that the first time that you went, oh, fuck, I just murdered, that I might be a regular, I might be able to come back all the time? Like, because Stern was our Carson, I think.
Right.
Stern and O&A and
but there was also a backstory with me because, my father was one of the biggest disc jockeys in New York my whole life.
I did know that.
Yeah, so when Stern was coming up, he used to attack my dad because that was his MO. Yeah, he'd go after Imus and he'd go after my dad. And so he was persona non grata in my house. I mean, he was the devil. And so my dad had died. He died young. And so
how old?
He was 50, and so Stern did a very lovely eulogy about him, talked about how much he looked up to him, how much he respected him, learned from him, blah, blah, blah. And, it talked about how he had teased him, and then he kind of felt bad. Is that plane okay in the background?
Yeah.
And talked about how he kind of felt bad about it. And so then I was sort of over it because I had secretly been listening anyway.
Yeah.
I wouldn't let my mother know that. And then all of a sudden I come in on the show, and they booked me to do the show, and I'm like, I'm feeling really weird because they reached out to me.
And did they know that you're his son?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So.
And you're doing comedy. How long you been doing comedy at this time? 10 years?
This is 2001, so I've been doing it for 11 years.
Okay.
And they reached out to me because I had won the HBO used to do this comedy festival in Aspen every year. And I had won the...
Do you realize you're saying that? Like, do you realize how different this business is? I know that because I remember when I started, that was like the shit to get.
Right.
Now it just doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. And so I won the jury award for Best Comedian at the festival. So that gave me some buzz. And Jackie the Joke Man had just left. So they're bringing in comics to see who might potentially take over that seat. And which obviously ended up being Artie Lang in the long run, rightfully so. And so I came in, and I'm like, all right, I don't know if I'm being hoodwinked. Are they setting me up? Are they going to shit on me?
Oh, that is the worst fucking feeling, too.
Right.
To be in your hotel room or in your house preparing for your rebuttals.
Right. So I'm coming in on a Monday, and on the Friday show, it was reruns that week because they were off. And what do they play? An old episode where Stern is shitting on my father. And all of a sudden, I can't sleep. I'm like, oh, this is an elaborate fuck with me. And so I come in there, and my guard was up. I was ready to go into the attack mode if I needed to. I was ready to rope a dope, whatever it took.
Yeah.
And I came in, and it he brought it up. He was very respectful about it. Turns out it was just a fluke that episode had been pulled.
Really?
And so we just
2001. He's still on in New York.
Right, it was a terrestrial.
So this is arguably the biggest radio show in the world at the time.
Yeah, at its peak. Yeah, it was huge.
And you're 2001. I know that I'm in New York doing stand up now, so I know where you are, and I know you're not producing yet.
I'd moved to LA about 2 years before. No, I moved to LA from New York, and my career took a snooze, and I was like, what the fuck did I do out here? And that comedy festival got me back in the business. I was always doing stand-up, but in terms of in 96, I hosted a game show on MTV.
I remember that.
Like 96 through 98 was like crazy 2 years. I went from nobody had heard of me, and then another festival. I did the Montreal Comedy Festival. And back when it was development executives, network executives, back when the bigwigs went to the comedy festivals, and people walked out of there, Ray Romano walked out of there with his show, and all people were getting launched out of these festivals. And so I come out and I do 2 5-minute sets. And when I get off stage and a buzz starts, so then my third set, I get off stage and it's literally like Brandon Tartikoff hands me his card. And somebody goes, dude, there's a line forming. There was a line. When I walked out of there, I had an inch-thick stack of business cards from NBC, ABC, Warner Brothers, everybody. Everybody wanted meetings. When I left there that weekend, I had the biggest manager in the business, the biggest agent in the business, a development deal with Fox.
So you have Jason Steinberg. Yep. No.
Right. Barry Katz.
Barry Katz.
And I had a spot booked on Letterman.
Oh, shut up. Seriously?
I had all this shit that came out of that.
Is that the highlight? When you look back, is that the moment where you went, oh, I just changed my life?
Oh, that's tough to beat. Yeah, that's tough to beat. You know, it was like everything just aligned. I mean, the fact that nobody had seen me. The problem is today is that there's such a demand for comedians that have a voice and that are funny that they grab them before they're there yet.
Yeah.
And I had been doing stand-up for 8 years, but I mean hard. Like I started out of Boston. We were doing 7 shows a week, 7 nights a week. You were out and on the road. Back when it was the comedy boom, so there was actually, on a quiet Tuesday night, there was 100 people in a room.
Yeah.
So you got to really develop your chops.
And you all were murderers.
Well, we got to be because we were fortunate enough to start in a city that had great comedy. And so, me and Rogan started together and we got... But basically now I really think before somebody gets that strong, they're seen and then they're not a big deal because they've been seen. Yeah. And I had been doing it long enough where it was like, bam, I was killing and it was also, I had hair back then. Oh, you should have seen me, Bert.
Were you drinking?
No.
You were already sober?
Yes.
That's the big thing about sobriety is you need the payoff. Sobriety's okay.
This should be a treat, right?
If you start succeeding because you're sober. Like Billy Gardell.
Yeah, like Billy Gardell, like Chris Hardwick.
Hardwick is a great fucking example.
Great story. I just did that show last night.
Oh, yeah?
The At Midnight show.
Oh, I haven't seen it. I mean, I've seen it, but I didn't see that one.
Well, it airs tonight.
Okay.
So when does your podcast go up?
Next week.
So if you TiVo'd me last week, thanks for watching. What are you, backlogged? What do you got,
No.
Jackie the Joke Man already this week?
Yeah, I'm backlog because I'm going on the road, so I need someone for next week. So wait, okay, Montreal. Your closing joke at Montreal that year.
Closing joke was, it was what I ended up naming my corporation. It was about, I lived in Manhattan for like 9 years before I came out to L.A. I'm from New York, but then I started in Boston. Then I came to New York City for about 9 years, and I used to get around exclusively on rollerblades. I would go to my sets. I'd walk into clubs with rollerblades and take them off, and I'd skate from the Upper West Side to the Village to the Upper East Side, all in one night. And so one this was actually during the day. I was going up 10th Avenue on my rollerblades, and I used to grab onto the back of trucks. UPS trucks were the best because they had this big rail off the back, and they were so heavy and slow that it was easy to hold on to.
They never just took off.
It would take off, but it didn't accelerate fast.
Yeah.
It was easy. And so you'd have to jump over potholes and shit, but it was a free ride. And so I'm hanging off the back of a UPS truck, and I had on a shirt that had maroon horizontal stripes, okay? Pretty thick maroon and white horizontal stripes. And so all of a sudden there's a cop behind me, and he gets on his loudspeaker, and he says, "Hey, donut boy, get off the back of the truck." And I'm thinking to myself, is that me? Donut boy?
Donut
what
boy.
The fuck is donut boy? And all I think is, it looks like one of those French pastry chef shirts. Like, that's how funny New York City cops are. In 1 second, he comes up with Donut Boy. And I was like, what is he? I'm doing this? This sounds like a superhero or something, like there's Croissant Man and Donut Boy. And so I couldn't stop laughing. And I don't even remember the whole routine. It was just based off of that had happened. And so I closed with that. And then that's the set that they basically booked me on Letterman, said just do that set on Letterman.
Ah, what a great feeling that is too.
Yeah.
You don't have to fucking get notes, you don't have to work through it.
Nope.
You got your set, you're ready, you already know what kills. You've done it 3 times in pressure situations.
Right, and my father had died about 5 years before that, and I had a really hard time dealing with it because he and I were very close, but he was an alcoholic and he was abusive, and so I had a very mixed relationship with him. And he died while we weren't talking. We hadn't spoken for probably about 6 or 7 months, and it was the first time I had not spoken to him in my life, and it was because he'd been going through a really bad bout of drinking that I'd been around, and I was going to Al-Anon meetings, and I'd been sober now, recently sober.
Yeah.
And so he died while that happened, and so when I went to do Letterman, it was just one of those moments where I really felt like, he was so supportive of my stand-up. He was so proud of me. It was really like in a different time, there's no doubt my father would have been a stand-up comic and a very successful one. Like he used to MC benefit shows, and he had all his stories and jokes that he would do, and he fucking loved it, you know? And so I just felt at that moment of going on Letterman like I was thinking about him a lot. And it was almost like this thought I had going out there is like, almost like talk to him, like, here we go, Dad, you know? And I went out and the set just could not have gone better. I mean, out of the gate, they just liked me and just, I felt so amazing. And then I got off stage and I just burst into tears. I immediately thought of him. And I was just crying.
Yeah. And
Faith Hill, because it meant more to me than any. I mean, you talk about the moment in Montreal definitely felt like, you know, this is the biggest thing. But Letterman, to this day, that first appearance is the thing that will mean more to me than anything ever has. Like, Letterman was it to me. And so that's why it was such a release to have done it, and it went well. And Faith Hill was going on next, and she came up and she gave me this big country music hug. It was so sweet. It was just so. I didn't even know who the fuck she was. I'd never heard of Faith Hill.
Yeah.
I just knew that this beautiful country music star gave me a big hug. And the producers were there, and you know, Zoe Friedman and Daniel Kellison, and they were just like, "What the fuck are you doing, crying?" No, they were very sweet.
Shake the sand out of your pussy.
Yeah.
Fucking man up.
Man up. It's stand-up comedy. Would you just?
Yeah, Letterman's one of those things where there's so many things that, having watched it a million times, where you walk out and you don't know whether you're supposed to wave or look at Paul and say, "Hey, Paul," because you don't know him.
Right.
Like, it's such a I think it is a benchmark for every comic, and I didn't have that really with the Tonight Show, 'cause I didn't really. I mean, Carson was the guy I watched, but he wasn't around. What so you move out to LA and then what?
Well, then I hosted a game show on MTV for 2 seasons. Called Idiot Savants, and that was kind of a big deal because it was MTV, you know, and so I would go do colleges, and like these college girls were lining up, but I had met my wife, and I used to cheat on my girlfriends like it was a varsity sport.
All the time. Yep.
And then, but I knew how bad it was. I knew how shitty it felt to try to look the girlfriend in the eye after that. And so with my wife, I was like, you know, and I knew the night I met her, I said to the woman that introduced us, our friend, I said, "I'm marrying your friend someday." And I knew it. And I didn't want to fuck it up. So it was really this trial of, are you really going to marry this girl? Because God is going to throw pussy at you. You are going to be staying in a Motel 6. You know, you're going to do shows where you bomb. You're going to be all alone. You're going to be fucking miserable. But you're going to be in West Virginia. This is one of the nights. I do a college in some little shit town in West Virginia. And, you know, and it actually went pretty well. But then afterwards, the kids were like, "Yeah, we're going down to the river. You want to hang out?" And I'm like, "Oh, I got to see this." So I go down to the river, and there's this one girl that's really flirting with me. And so I'm hanging out in the dorms with her and her friends. And she goes, "I just got to get changed before we go down to the river." And she just takes her shirt off and puts on another shirt. And I'm like, huh? And they're like hillbillies.
Yeah.
And we go down to the river, and they're smoking pot. They're playing bongos. They're dancing. It's like out of Deliverance, some weird shit. And then I'm driving. I have my car, my rent-a-car, and I drive back up to the dorms. And I pull up to the front. And this girl was Daisy Duke, you know?
Yeah.
And she goes, "Do you want to come up to my room?" And I said, "No, I can't." I said, I'm just gonna go back to my room." "Well, what are you gonna do in your room?" I go, "I am just gonna lock the door and watch some porn." She goes, "Well, you can watch some porn, or you can come upstairs and make some porn." And my penis actually reached out and punched me in the face, and said, "Are you shitting me, Greg?" And I said, "Thank you." That was it. And I went home, and I still resent my wife for that. I really do.
There's been times I've not fucked chicks, and I thought, "God damn it!"
And you come home angry at your wife, right?
With a picture of them.
Do you have any? Right? You don't do that.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
You want credit?
Fuck yeah.
You want actual credit?
Oh yeah. I remember the first time I did it. It was right after Shithead, Georgia, and I was down in Houston Laugh Stop, and this chick wanted to fuck me, and my wife wasn't fucking me because she had a baby.
Yeah.
And she was like dealing with like that.
Right.
And And I came back and I was like, just to give you a heads up, I totally could have cheated on you with the hottest chick. She's like, and I had a picture.
Right.
But I had not paid attention that well to the picture or the girl, and the girl clearly had a lazy eye. And my wife pointed it out. She's like, really? That was what you could have. And I was like, oh, fuck, I didn't even see that. She was like, really? That's what you brought home?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been a couple times where I really actually look back and I go, like, God, I still remember them.
Well, there was this girl when I met my wife, and I was dating a few chicks at the time.
Yeah.
Like, it was definitely, like I said, before I met my wife, I think the MTV show might have been on already. Like, I was doing better than I'd ever done in my life.
Yeah.
So it was really pretty amazing that when I met my wife, I was like, I'm going to marry her because, option A was way better, which is continue doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And because I've slept with many women, but I was always a numbers guy, much more than quality. Definitely quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just more of like, you will have sex with me? Let's do it. And so I'm dating a few women, and there's one in particular that I met her once briefly, and we exchanged numbers because she was going to New Orleans to write a novel. Very fucking smart chick.
Is this Anne Rice?
It's Anne Rand.
It's Ayn?
Ayn Rand. Is Ayn Rand a man or a woman?
It's a woman, but she looks kind of manly.
Right. And she's dead.
Oh, yeah. But her beliefs aren't.
Thank God. And so I get into this phone relationship with her where we're talking for 3-4 hours a night, every night.
Really?
I mean, I got everything in common with her. We love the same books and, movies and just philosophy and we were having these deep, great conversations, sexy voice. And so now she's coming back from New Orleans, and I hadn't seen her, and I had to say to my wife, and I'm meeting up with this chick, and I'm saying to my future wife that I had to break up with somebody. I had to break up with a couple people so we could go out. And she was kind of dating somebody who she broke up with, so we could clean it up. And so I go break up with this chick, and she's got a beard. Like, not a full beard like you, but she's got a fair amount of growth under the chin that I hadn't really noticed the first time. Maybe she'd grown it out in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But she couldn't be in the circus, but she also couldn't be in like a good nightclub.
Yeah.
Like, she would have been stopped at the Velvet Rope.
She couldn't be in the circus, but she couldn't be. That's a nice window.
So I see it, and I'm like, oh, all right, this hurts less.
Yeah.
As much as I, spiritually and emotionally, you're my soulmate, you got a beard.
Yeah.
And it'll always be there. Whether you shave it now and maintain it, I'll always know there's a beard under your... I shouldn't say all this, because if she is ever listening, I'm doing this for comic...
I share so much shit where I go... Like, I told a story on a podcast yesterday about the best improv I had on stage versus the worst. And the best one was I should say the name of the guy's podcast, Road Stories with Murray Valeriana. Anyway, and the best one was a proposal. They wanted me to do a proposal for a guy and a girl on stage, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and the guy didn't fucking know, and I came up with it on the fly, and it was the most genius thing I'd ever done.
Right.
And so, and what I did is I had me take my shirt off. I put my shirt around the girl's head, so she had it blindfolded, and I said, now you're going to feel our chests, and you got to guess which one is your husband and which one is me. And so as I put the blindfold on her, he gets down on a knee with the ring, and I pull the blindfold off, and she starts bawling. Everyone starts crying. The flip-flop of that, the worst one, and I hope...
Wait, did she feel your chests?
No. She did. She had her hands out like this, ready to go.
You could have put your cock against her hand. That would have been a better improv.
And then done that real quick, and then go, oh, it's okay. Look, she's proposing.
Right.
And then the worst one was the exact same one, but it was with Stroop in Columbus. And Stroop told me, he was like, yeah, it's a proposal. Like, oh, I got this one nailed. Don't worry about it. So I was like, have them come meet me right before, and it was a fucking chick proposing to a dude. And as when I did the blindfold off the dude, he looked at me and was like, no. Like, And I was
no.
like, motherfucker.
No
and he's
way.
Like, and he was mouthing to me, why would you do this?
Oh.
And the girl's already on her knee, and the energy's not cool. The energy's not like, the energy's like a bunch of dudes going, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he said yes, but he was like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then they went and they
How
sat.
emasculating.
Oh, but so I tell that story, and I hope to God they're not still married going, no, it wasn't that bad, but
Well, the follow-up to mine was that my wife and I told her that I'd broken up with these girls and, kind of made myself out to be a stud.
yeah.
And then we bump into this girl, and my wife saw the beard, and to this day, she's like, yeah, I know, things were really good. Things were really good before me. You gave up a lot for me.
You always describe your wife as like, and I've looked for pictures of your wife on the internet, and I can never find them. But you always describe your wife as slamming hot compared to you. You're always like, my wife is beautiful, gorgeous, and I'm always like, I want to see what she looks like.
Well, it's so funny you say that because literally this morning, my wife was Googling. She was Googling me for some reason. Maybe that's what wives do. And then Greg Fitzsimmons' wife came up in the search engine in Google.
Yeah.
And it was all these different chicks on the road that I got my arm around. They take pictures after shows.
Yeah.
But there's this one chick in particular. She's a comedian from Florida. And
Kathleen McGee.
I'm forgetting her name at this point. What?
Is it Tampa?
No, West Palm.
Okay.
And great chick, and I've worked with her a few times.
Lisa,
And
little tall girl?
Right.
Lisa, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, she is tagged as my wife in like a half a dozen different photos.
I saw that picture, and I was like, that's not his wife.
Right.
I know her. I've worked with her.
And as a matter of fact, her boyfriend lives out here now. Richards. His last name is Richards. John Richards? Fuck. Anyway, I'm so bad with names. So anyway, I looked it up. You cannot find one single picture of my wife online, and that's been my policy. Like, there's not a single picture of my kids online. I just forbid it. I don't want that shit out there.
Yeah.
But I can show you a picture of her on my phone.
No. I imagine what she looks like.
She's got like 34 D cups, body solid, flat stomach.
Really?
She's got bright blue eyes, perfect face. She was Julia Roberts' assistant for years.
Really?
And everybody said she looked exactly like Julia.
Holy shit. How did you guys meet?
My friend Sarah Fearon, who is a comedic actress in New York, was joining the Friars Club. I sponsored her to join the Friars Club, and I was a big Friar.
Whatever happened to the Friars Club?
It's still kicking in New York.
Really?
Yeah, my dad was a big Friar. And
Okay.
he was like the token Irish guy at the Friars Club. So I spent my childhood there, hanging out with Henny Youngman and Malzy Lawrence and Freddie Roman, like all those old Borscht Bell comics I knew since I was a little kid. And so when I got old enough, I went to, after my dad died, I moved to New York and I went to acting school for 2 years while I was doing stand-up. And I used to spend my days at the Friars Club, shooting pool, working out, going to the steam room, eating lunch with these guys. And so I took my friend there for the ceremony when she became a member, and she brought my wife with her to see the Friars Club. And I was in the Milton Berle room, talked to her for like 20 minutes, and she was with another dude. But I was so cocky, I just fucking blew past the other dude.
And that's your club.
Talked to her. That's my club.
Yeah.
Right. And so I pursued her. Kevin Brennan came with me one night.
Kevin Brennan.
Yeah, I knew.
Fuck.
I knew that,
he was my in comedy.
No shit.
He was my only person I knew because he grew up with my uncles.
In Philly?
In Philly. And his parents, his family lived next door to my one uncle and all my cousins. And so my Uncle Dave said, I know Kevin Brennan. When you go around, you find Kevin Brennan. And so I found Kevin Brennan at the night they closed Catch
a Rising Star.
Catch a Rising Star. And I said, Kevin, I'm Bert Kreischer. Dave Hobson's my uncle. And he's like, oh, okay. I said, I'm related to all the Hobsons, and I want to get into comedy. If you have any advice you can give me, what would it be? And he goes, oh, don't talk to me. Talk to this guy. And he sat me down next to Attell. And he was like, ask him everything you want. He'll tell you everything you need to know.
Right.
And I was like, hey, man, I'm Bert. And Attell just sat there like, I remember his advice was get out now.
Right.
He was like, it doesn't get any better. It only gets worse.
Right.
But yeah, Kevin Brennan, he is so fucking funny, too.
Yeah, he's really, really.
So you and Kevin Brennan, sorry.
So Kevin came. I was like, Kevin, you got to come with me. I'm going down. There's this girl I like, and she's selling tickets for this benefit down in Soho, and I don't want to walk in alone. So he comes down with me. And I'm flirting with her, and yeah. Long story short, I ask her out, and we date for like 3 years, and then I say I want to take you to the Friars Club one night, and I hadn't brought her back for whatever reason, so I took her to the Milton Berle room, and I had the manager. He had put the lights down low, and he had Unforgettable playing because that was on our first date. This homeless guy in the Bowery sang Unforgettable to us, and we slow danced in the street. And so that was playing.
You're such a fucking different person than I see you on stage.
Right. And then
there's a part of you that you don't see, especially in your stand-up, is your confidence. Like, you're extremely confident, and you're not afraid of a lot of shit. Like, and I only say that because I remember one of the first things I saw about you. I remember a long time ago, you were on the road, and you was Googling people, and I'd heard you had a joke about it's hard to jerk off on the same computer that as soon as I close that window, a picture of my kids pop up.
Right.
And I had just had that happen, but I hadn't had that.
Shit.
I hadn't written the joke, but I heard you do it, and I went, "Oh my god, that's so funny! I just thought that." And so I started Googling you, and I think I was listening to your podcast at the time, or maybe I'd heard you on Sirius XM.
Yeah.
And one of the first pictures was you surfing in Hawaii, and I was like, "Whoa!"
All right.
I did not picture Greg Fitzsimmons as someone who. There's a big step is to be someone that goes, I would like to learn how to surf.
Right.
I'm a grown man, and this is something I think I might like, and I'm going to rent a board in Hawaii, go out in the break, and learn how to surf. And you were surfing.
Well, I think that I grew up having a life that I was very fortunate. You know, my dad, we grew up, we had some money, and we did things, and I think that I always had in my head that I was going to have a family. I grew up in a family that was very close. It had its problems, but I really wanted, and I took my son surfing. We took surf lessons together in Hawaii. And I just always wanted to be the person, like, I didn't want to be the comic that becomes like the chain-smoking guy that's in a coffee shop till 4 a.m. and is miserable and doesn't do things in his life. It's very easy to get, and you're like this. You do shit. I mean, you got a TV show about doing shit. And I just feel like being a comic doesn't preclude you having a family, doing activities, traveling, having close friendships with people outside of comedy. And I think that that's something I learned from my dad is that, you gotta live your life. Don't sit around waiting for this business to happen to you, because I think the thing as a comic, not every comic, I mean, you look at a guy like Attell, and that is the life he lives.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's more about, I guess, talking about my life and my family and things I've done. That's what gives me material.
You were the first guy I saw on stage when I first moved out to L.A. who wasn't doing what was technically New York comedy about hookers in the back of a taxi, or kill the hooker was like the tag. It seemed like
there's always a midget watching you kill a hooker.
Yeah,
and a Special Olympics is going on in the background.
And you were talking about running I'm saying it wrong, but having a three-way with your wife and your son
while she breastfeeds my son. Right.
And I was like, oh, like I remember stepping back going, oh my God, like this is so, it was so globally different than anything I had seen in the clubs in New York.
Yeah.
And then as I kind of, and I was one of those people that like very quickly realized I don't want to just be the guy at the end of the bar drinking by myself. I want to have a family. I want to live a life. I want to have a more global existence than just the 20 dudes I hang out with on the road or in the clubs. But you were the first guy that I saw doing that, and that picture in Hawaii is one of the things I was like, whoa.
Wow.
Comics don't surf.
Right.
Like, I know I do, and I keep that.
I had on a Gilligan's Island hat and a shirt.
Yeah, you did. It's a great picture. You look like you're terrified of the sun. It's like vampire surfing.
I know. I just want to tell people it's not as cool as it sounds. And the best part is the guy who was teaching me and my son, he was born in Kauai, and his family had run this surf camp for like 3 generations. And it was this perfect little baby break where, it's a perfect place to learn how to surf.
Was it Titus?
What are you talking about?
The surf camp. Because I know.
I don't know the name of it. It's on the North Beach of.
Titus is the oldest family in Titus. I forget his last name. He's they're. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, the mom kind of runs it,
and they're descendant. They're the descendant of kings.
No shit.
Yeah, and that family is the inn with Laird Hamilton because Laird Hamilton lives on Kauai.
Wow.
And Laird Hamilton and those guys like the
Dogtown guys.
Yeah, Hawaii's a really small town and like a little really small state. Everyone kind of knows each other, especially when you go to those islands.
You're right.
And so, but yeah, I think I know
that's
what you're talking
cool.
about. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, so the guy was like almost philosophical. He was like this 19-year-old dude, dark tan, sleepy, laid back, and he brings you out on the boards, and then he goes, he only gives you like 3 tips to start.
Yeah.
And the first one is, if you look down, you're gonna go down. If you look up, stay up. And I was like, did you just mean that is the perfect metaphor for life, or are we talking about surfing here? And like everything he said was like these. I was like, oh, this is the fucking greatest. And we surfed like bitches, big boards.
Yeah.
So you get on a little wave with a big board. It's like being on a yacht. You just stand there.
And it's funny shit.
Yeah, it's
it
fun.
really is. Like if you've never gone surfing, it's one of my new thing. And I had a dream about it last night. That's so fucking crazy. I had a dream I went paddleboarding in Malaysia, and then I realized they were all doing their laundry in this water, and I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna get sick. That's because scarlet fever's going around my kid's school. But yeah,
scarlet fever.
Exactly. What year is this?
Well, now because kids aren't getting inoculated anymore by their parents.
Yep. So they're all getting scarlet fever.
Idiots.
So wait. I'm doing exactly what people hate about my podcast. Hummingbird inside the fucking room. Did you see that?
Did he come in?
Hummingbird just flew into the room. I'm starting like 19 different stories with you, and I'm never letting you finish any of them. So
no.
Okay,
so I asked my wife to marry me in the Milton Borough. That's it. And then then we walked to this French restaurant, this great French restaurant in New York, and had a great meal. And she had the ring, and she just kept looking at the ring. And then I took her to a Broadway show, and during the show, she's looking at the ring. And then we went to this was on her birthday, December 23rd. So then we went to the St. Regis Hotel. There's this bar called the King Cole Room. Do you know that room?
No.
It's this classic old...
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Right on Central Park South. Yep. And this big room, and we always go there, and we meet up with all her friends on her birthday. So we go there, we have a drink, and all her friends are there, and her friend who introduced us was there. And I said, do you remember what I said to you the night that I met Erin? And she goes, no. I go, the thing about getting married. And she's like, no. And I was like, you fucking bitch. She forgot. I expected her to go, you told me that night you were going to marry her. Anyway, so we had a drink, and then it started snowing, so we went across the street to Central Park, and we got into a carriage and did a carriage ride through Central Park in the snow. And I threw a move on her, and I got shot down. Had the blanket on top of us.
Really?
Yeah, she didn't.
What? Okay, so now let's go back and finish Stern.
So Stern, so then I go on, and he couldn't have been sweeter, more supportive. I felt like there was a magic. There was just, I done stand, like, you go on the road and you do 3, 4, 5 radio interviews a week when you're on the road, and it's with every kind of disc jockey. And so you do that for enough years, you get to be really good at just connecting. You look him in the eye and you go for the ride. If this guy's going to suck, I'm taking over the interview. If he's good, then we can just riff and I don't have to think. If he wants to be one of these setup guys, fine, I'll do some chunks. So you get really good at adjusting. And so when I sat down with Stern, I was just like, I'm just looking at him. Whatever he does, I'm just going to be truthful. I'm not going to. One thing I learned watching Stern is don't deflect. If he asks you a question, answer it honestly. That's all you got to do. He doesn't turn on people unless they're not giving him anything.
Like if you're just like, I don't
want to talk about that. Or, come on, Howard. Then you get attacked. So I let it out, and some good stories came out, and then he started bringing me in every couple weeks, and then once a week, and then he brought me in for like a whole week straight every day, because it came down to basically start out with like a dozen comics, Stanhope, and I forget all the guys that were coming in, but it came down to me and Artie. And So then it was like this head-to-head competition, and it wasn't stated. It was not a contest for the chair, but it was very obvious that that's what was happening, and so it was talked about. And then he got it, and I was like, I can't compete with a guy that can come in and tell hooker stories and coke stories and gambling stories, and he was just perfect.
Artie's stories. I remember being in cars, driving, going like I feel like I haven't fucking lived.
Right.
Like he's got stories that are like, I mean, I guess with them come, the hiccups that he's had in his life.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know if I'd want those hiccups, but
Have you been on Stern?
no, I've never been on Stern.
You kill on Stern.
No, I'm in a weird place in my life where I feel like all I do is deflect. But
Right.
like if you do Stern, I was like, I remember that at one point they were talking about, we did like a pre-interview, I think with Will.
Yeah.
And I sent
Right.
Will some things, and I forget who said it, but they were like, if you do Stern, you gotta just be 100% honest about everything. And I was like, I could do that. I could do that. I mean, I'm not afraid. Here's the thing: I'm not afraid of the truth with me. I'm afraid of what that does to other people.
Yeah.
Like I don't like just in a weird fucking place with when I wrote the book, I was like 100% honest about fucking everything. And I had a buddy call today. And he was like, "Can you send me a copy?" I was like, "Sure." He was like, "I just want to know what I need to be prepared for." And I was like, "Yeah, sorry."
Is he in it?
Oh yeah. And he's one of the most fascinating fucking human beings in the world. But like, I mean, me and you can be honest about our lives because we make money off of being honest.
Yeah.
A lot of people that aren't like us.
Oh yeah.
And there are a lot of comedians who aren't honest.
Yeah.
Who live a very different life off stage and on stage, and aren't comfortable with the truth. And I'm not comfortable with revealing their lies. I'm not. I'm talking in circles, but like.
No, I know what you're saying. Like my a woman who's extremely close to me, who has been sort of my spiritual mentor my whole life, is gay and lives with a woman for the last 20 years. And in my book, I talk about her and her strength and the example she set and her being gay. And I called her just to go through a couple facts because I called anybody that was in the book and make sure that the facts were right. And so I actually had emailed her the chapter that she was in, and she was
Jesus
like
Christ,
flabbergasted. She's like, I'm not a lesbian. She's like, I love who I love. It's just whoever. It's not, I used to date guys, and I was like, all right, took it out.
Really?
Yeah. Thank God I didn't put it out there.
Yeah.
Because she's one of the closest people in the world to me.
Yeah, that would. I mean, yeah, my buddy Mock kidnapped a couple girls one time, and then we took over a town in Pennsylvania, and it's like, look, like I talked to him on the phone for like fucking an hour, and I was like, listen, I'm very real about all that. And he's like, I don't give a fuck. He's like, you know what? I decided last night I'm quitting my job. I'm moving to Vegas. I'm going to pursue poker professionally. I was like, that's the fucking guy in the book. That's who you really are. You're not this corporate guy.
So you freed a lot of people from their conventional lives with this book.
Yeah, hopefully.
Everybody had to quit their jobs and get new identities after this book.
I was like, fucking, I was signing books yesterday because I sold pre-orders. I sold pre-orders at my shows, so I'm signing books, and my wife's like, wait, you know her? And I was like, who? She's like, Allison Williams. It's Allison Shamblin. And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, she's in the book. Oh fuck, she bought a book.
Oh shit.
I was like, hey Allison, you're on page 43. I think I'm pretty respectful. I talk about her not fucking me. So
there
like
you go.
and so
Badge of honor among women.
That she had good morals. Her morals were intact, and that's why I moved to her best friend, Jenny Powers, who's in the book, who bought a book also, who
did have sex with you.
No, didn't either. Didn't
Wow.
either. Neither of them did. And the girl that did, I didn't use her name. Thank fucking God.
Yeah.
But
Oh, so you didn't change names?
Nope.
Dude, are you crazy?
I know.
Anything edgy, I changed the names on. And I blacked out people's faces and pictures if I didn't have explicit
I'm gonna have
permission.
anxiety about this right now.
Who's your publisher?
St. Martin's.
So it's a legitimate book, and they didn't go through it and say...
They did with a lawyer.
And they said the names are fine?
Yeah,
Then you're fine.
Will Smith's in there. It's like I'm not going to get sued. I just losing friends.
Right.
Like people just going. I mean, it's not like we all hang out now anyway. But I just feel
my relatives are very Irish Catholic, and most of them did not mention the book. They read it, but they didn't bring it up to me. Like, it was not. I got that same fucking table right there.
What?
Restoration Hardware? That side table?
Where? This thing?
Yeah.
Really? I have no idea. They brought it with the Mancave.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, your book came out. You were one of the reasons I wrote a book.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I've told you this. I bought your book, and you were talking about on your podcast. You're like, I use Drag and Dictate. It really helped me get started.
That's right.
And I was like,
yeah, you did tell me that.
I've been waiting for this my whole fucking life. I bought it.
The greatest, right?
Started the book in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to write a fucking book. And I wrote, the first story I wrote was when I fought a bear, and I wrote that down in the book, and I was like, but then I did it with
You wrote it, or you did Drag and Dictate?
Drag and Dictate. Then I sent it to my wife. She's like, I can't understand any of this. Were you drunk last night? I was like, yeah, I was so drunk, I actually lost a tooth that night. I woke up without a tooth, and I was like, what happened? And so I...
Wait, explain what it is to people that don't know.
Drag and Dictate is a headset that had a real long cord. You plug it into your computer with the program, and it would translate what you said into words on the paper.
So you could just... Because let's be honest, our books are a collection of stories.
Yeah.
So you just... I could do one better, is I would talk into a handheld cassette recorder. That way, I have an office, and there's this park across the street, and I would walk around the park, and I would set out, and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to go tell the story about getting into the fight in Boston. And then I'd walk around that park for 15, 20 minutes and talk the story out, and there's only one recorder that's compatible with Drag and Dictate. And then I would plug it into my computer, and it would download all those words right into it, and, you know, spell check, grammar check, and boom, you got, because writing is all about having a big, ugly first draft. It doesn't matter how bad it is. Writing is rewriting. You're going to rewrite it 12 fucking times. It's that first draft that's hard to get. So now you got it. You got that first draft.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the best thing. And so I wrote like 4 chapters like that, and I was like, this is great. And then my wife was like, all right, you need to go through now and write those, because the words are there and your ideas are there, and that gives you the confidence to start editing. And then I edited through, and then I sold a book through that, and I was like, oh, fuck, I sold a book. And then I tried.
You mean as a proposal?
As a proposal,
right?
Yeah. And then I tried selling. I tried writing the rest of the book with Drag and Dictate, but it didn't really. I ended up bailing on it after a while, because I then found that I had an upgrade and it wasn't compatible, and I needed a new mic, and I was like, motherfucker, I'll just start writing.
Yeah.
So, but you were one of the first people, but you released yours online.
No, I did both. I had Simon Schuster was the publisher, so we put it out in a hardcover, and at the same time we put it out as a ebook on. Well, but what I did was, when you read the ebook on your iPad, you can click on any of the throughout it. I made videos. So anytime, my book was a collection of letters and behavior reports my mom had saved my whole life when I was in trouble. So in the book I have them, but instead of just reading them, you tap it and it launches a video, and I would have like Andy Dick, Zach Galifianakis. I had all these different comedians playing the professors that were writing the notes. Yeah. So they would sit there with like a pen and pretend they were writing, and they'd say it out loud. So it was, and not too many people had done that before, where it was like interactive in the ebook.
Now, when did you start your podcast? You were the first generation.
Probably 6 years ago. That's 6 years ago? Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I've been doing the radio show about 7 years. So after a year, I started doing the podcast. And I started out 1 a week, and then after about a year, I went to 2 a week.
What's the best radio show you've done on that?
The best interview I've done on my podcast?
No, on your podcast and on your radio show. Because I remember listening to one with Andy Dick that was pretty fucking awesome.
The Andy Dick ones are always fantastic. He is just my favorite. And I got in a lot of trouble with him once because he came on and he was in a bad way. And he started talking about Stern because Stern had just canceled his show, which was on Sirius XM. And then he had called in to try to talk to somebody else who was newly sober, and I think it was Charlie Sheen, as a matter of fact. And Howard kind of let him through and then hung up on him, said, you're really in bad shape if Andy Dick is calling in to give you advice about sobriety. So Andy got on my podcast and started going, fuck Howard Stern, that fucking hook-nosed Jew bastard.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And said a lot of really
that one.
anti-Semitic stuff, and Howard got irate.
God, it's so funny. I forgot Howard was Jewish.
Right.
That's so
But that
funny.
was a running thing on the show. Is one of the whack packers used to call him a hook-nosed Jew bastard. I think it was Yucko the Clown. And so it became kind of a moniker that a lot of people would say as a joke. But Andy was saying it, but it didn't seem like as funny when he said it.
Yeah.
And I did a poor job of moderating it and sort of bringing him down or calling him on it. And so when Howard played the clips back,
That's
I
where
was
I listened
laughing.
to it. I listened to it on Howard's show.
Yeah.
He was playing your clips.
Right.
That's where I remember.
And I'm
listening
laughing at it just because it's Andy Dick being Andy Dick.
Yeah.
And as a host on Sirius XM on Howard's channel, I feel like you just keep giving a guy rope. You know, you try to create a train wreck, which I felt bad about on two levels. One is Andy's a friend, and I should have protected him.
Yeah.
And secondly, he was hurtful to Howard because I wasn't stepping in and defending him.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that it was the biggest thing I've ever learned in radio. Is like, you know, there is a point where you have to be responsible and not just make it because the way it's heard and perceived is very different sometimes than what's happening in the room.
Yeah. I've run into that in my podcast where I'm like, I'm laughing pretty hard.
Yeah.
Is this the wrong reason to be laughing?
Right.
Now, okay. What about on your podcast? What's the favorite one you've done in your podcast?
I did one with Nick Kroll where we were talking about there was a girl in high school that I was like a freshman in high school, and I was at this kid's house, and he was a really wealthy kid, and he had and we were drinking schnapps, and he had a younger sister who was probably at least a year, maybe 2 years younger.
Yeah.
And so I went in the next room and I started fooling around with her, and I fingered her. But like I reached down her pants, and you know how it is when at that age you don't really even take the pants off. You just all you want to do is get your finger inside to say you did it.
Yeah.
And like the idea that you're satisfying her is not even part of the equation. It's literally just, can I put my finger in her vagina and then tell my friends I did?
It's like,
so I got my hand down there, and I get like carpal tunnel of trying to get my finger in, and I get my finger in the hole, and I'm like, yeah, and then I leave his house later, and I smell my finger, and it smells like human shit, and I realized I went past the vagina and I fingered her asshole, and it was the first time she'd been fingered because she was probably 13. And I fucked her up for life because, you know, she thought that's normal. She didn't know that that's not how it's supposed to be.
Status quo. Wait, wrong hole. And now every other guy's like, wrong hole.
Right. You freak. Get your finger out of that hole. It's the asshole. And so he starts, and we went to the same high school, which is why the story came up. And I swear to God, for 30 minutes, we were just riffing about what the rest of her life was like. And for 3 days, my ribs hurt from laughing so hard.
Really?
It was just, and I always do a best of at the end of the year where I give awards for the best podcast, the best this.
Yeah.
And that one took the best podcast. And then Andy Kindler was the other best of. Have you had him on?
No, I talked to him on Twitter about doing it, and our schedules just haven't lined up.
He's the greatest.
I've always liked watching him.
He's really, really great.
Yeah, I get a kick out of those guys. I think guys like Kindler, every comic absolutely runs in the room to go watch.
Yeah.
Dana Gould was someone I really wanted to see live, and he hadn't been doing stand-up in forever, and then I got to see him.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kindler makes me laugh hard as shit.
So hard because it's so honest. It's completely honest, and it's from a comedian's point of view. All the terminology and the concepts are all that only a comic could understand what he's really talking about.
So what got you into you took the same path Louis took in some ways, and that is you got out of doing the road and started making television and writing for television, and then executive producing television, then show running television, and now I'm kind of curious to see what you're doing now, but.
Well, actually, Louis got me my first writing job.
Really?
Yeah, when I was on the road, and my son was about 1, and I was missing so much because I was on the road so much.
Don't tell me.
And I'm on the phone with Louis complaining about it, and he goes, "Well, you want to try writing for TV?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah!" And he was a producer on Cedric the Entertainer Presents, which was on Fox. It was a sketch show.
Yeah.
Cedric was brilliant. And he goes, well, let me see if I can get you something on here. And so they actually needed somebody to write the monologues. So he had me come in and meet with Cedric and show him some material. And I got hired. And I was the guy who wrote all of it's so ironic because here's this black guy from St. Louis who is, really black. And I get hired to write his monologues with him. But we just clicked. I just had funny concepts that he liked. Like reality shows were just kind of taking off then. And I had this whole idea about how black guys, no matter how much they help the team, they're still the first ones kicked off the show. They get voted off every time. And so that was my first, right? And then from there I went directly to The Man Show and then to Ellen DeGeneres.
You worked on The Man Show?
Yeah. When it was Rogan and Stanhope.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then I went to Ellen, and then I went to Louis' sitcom, and then I've just done a million shows since then, but it's always been like I spend half my time on the road and half my time writing on TV shows, and then, now the podcasting and radio stuff comes up. So I have times where, once you get a writing job, it's often like you're starting Monday.
Yeah.
And, with stand-up, you've got 3 months booked out ahead of you. Yeah. So I would have times in the last few years where I'm in a city Thursday, Friday, Saturday, coming back on Sunday, writing Monday through Thursday, and doing 2 podcasts and a radio show during the week. And it's a fucking grind. But then I have times where, sometimes you got a few weeks off from the road and I'm not writing on something. And then thank God I've got the podcast to give me some delusion that I'm still in the business.
That's it. I feel like that delusion is all I have sometimes. It's so funny. I'm on stage in Tampa last week, and I have this bit that that happened to me, but I was thinking about. I'll tell you about it later. But and I was on my head. I'm trying to write it on stage, and sometimes like when I'm lost in a bit, this happened to me a lot when I was younger. I used to go like, how would Attell get into this, or how would it? Where would his angle, like I remember the very first joke I ever wrote was I had touched a stewardess's face during a flight. She was going to cut me off, and I didn't want her to, and I was very drunk, so I put my finger on her lips and went shh, and so and I told it to Patrice, and Patrice thought it was fucking hilarious, and I remember Patrice and I were sitting there, and I was like, I don't know how to write it as a joke, and he's like, I know how I'd write it as a joke. I remember hearing him say that. And he's like, for me, it wouldn't be a stewardess; it would be a cop. And I was like, okay. He's like, if you make it a cop, it's that much bigger. And then I was like, how do I get into that? It's a weird story to tell. And in my head, I was like, how would Attell say it? And literally, and I, this is what you do when you're younger. Is I figured out Attell would write, what cops hate? When you touch their faces.
Yeah.
And so that was that was how I got into it. And then I tell the story.
Right.
And so the other day, I'm on stage and I'm telling this story, and I'm like, this is a Fitzsimmons story. It's a very honest, very open, very real, semi-sexual, without talking about sex, story about a relationship with your wife and your kids show up. Wow. And I was like, this is a fucking Fitzsimmons story. Wow. And in my head, I was like, son of a bitch. Now, who were your influences when you started?
Oh, definitely Attell.
Really?
Well, I started in Boston, so, I mean, if you forget about, like, the prior Carlin thing.
Yeah.
But if you talk about, like, first-hand influences, I mean, I started in Boston. And it was a closed community. There weren't comics that came in. Touring headliners didn't come to Boston because it was like a union shop. There were guys that were big, and they were the headliners. It was like Steve Sweeney and Don Gavin and Kenny Rogerson and Mike Donovan. There was like 7 or 8 guys that were the closers. And so because of that, and same with the features and the opener, so you had to really develop your own voice. Because if you were similar to one of the guys that was already working in Boston, you get your ass kicked.
Yeah.
So you really had to develop your own voice. And the guys that influenced me were like Don Gavin, who had this delivery where he just threw away punchlines and tags.
I've never seen Don Gavin.
You know how Tom Cotter or Wendy Liebman, they'll do a joke, but then the punchline is they step on the laugh with the punchline. Yeah. Kind of. And so that style was very powerful in Boston. And a lot of guys had to fight to not sound too much like Don Gavin. But they were joke writers. In Boston, it was like, it was edgy. It was really like self-deprecating. It was very cop, talking about drunk driving, and it was very male and aggressive, and which served me well when I went to New York. And then when I got to New York, it was definitely a tell. Just like, how do you not sound like this motherfucker when you see him consistently killing in front of tough crowds night after night in a way that was so different, and so his
pacing was so fucking quick and fast,
right?
And on top of it, I mean, he still to this day has my favorite CD ever, Skanks for the Memories.
Right.
I listen to that to this day, and it's just so fucking quick. And
so the other night, I'm fucking this girl doggy style. Not how I planned it. It's just the way she passed out. Yeah. Anyway, a couple of McNuggets later.
Yeah.
It's like, who the fuck writes that? It's like...
Yeah.
And so...
Who's next, Dave? The Eskimos? That's right, or as I call them, the Snow Mexicans. Like, it's just so fucking...
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so... And I grew out of that, and then you hear Hicks, or actually Hicks was before Attell. I think every comic was affected by Hicks, and especially in terms of not giving a fuck what the audience thinks, and at least putting that out there. It may not be obviously you don't really feel like that, but letting the audience feel like that they're not in control of the show and what happens and the material that's
really fucking deep about. Yeah. I know that. I know that vibe, and I know that it changed. Because when I was in New York, I remember bombing was okay. Like, if you did not do great, that was fine. That happened to a lot of people all the time. You'd see someone fucking struggle, but that was part of the art form, was to watch them get in and out and have a good bomb line. Like, Norton was the best at, like, if a joke didn't work, what he followed that with was going to murder.
Right.
And then I moved out to L.A., and I saw Dane, and I remember Dane just did not do anything other than amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember watching him go on stage going, this isn't like New York comedy. This is like theater comedy.
Yeah.
Like, there's no like it was fun to watch Louis go in and fuck around on stage, or watch Dave kind of take it and it not go well, and then to watch him get out of it. I to this day, one of my favorite stories of Attell is he says to a guy in the audience, "Sir, I'm trying to work up here." And he goes back to the joke, and the guy keeps talking. He goes, "I'm going to give you one more chance, buddy, and then I'm coming after you." And he comes back, and the guy keeps talking. He goes, "All right, you've had it. Now, when I get done with this joke, I'm coming after you." And he's the math leads. "You're up, numbnuts. Here we go." And he starts, it's guys like you that makes girl like that fuck guys like me. Place goes nuts. If I had two hands, I mean, just fucking but it was like more interactive.
Yeah.
And I saw Dane come out, and it was literally like, he held the mic different than everyone.
Yeah.
He walked the stage different. He wore different clothes than New York comics.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting...
Yeah, I think the way Attell, the fascinating thing about Attell is exactly that, is I think he's almost like, he's like air traffic controller. He's got his material he's doing, he's fucking with the crowd, he's playing to the back of the room, and he's talking to himself. Yeah. And he's doing it all effortlessly. He's just spinning plates, and at the same time having this feeling that he can't lose.
Yeah.
And with Dane, I think he started like a couple years after me in Boston.
Yeah.
And he was at that same fortunate class of being able to have all these crowds that you could learn how to crush and feel like that's my baseline. Crushing's my baseline. As opposed to if you start in New York or LA and you're performing for 8 people, 7 of them are other comics, your baseline is, I have to look like this isn't the most painful thing in the world.
Yes.
And then when you have an opportunity to crush, you don't, because it just feels like rarefied air. You don't realize that I can take this great crowd and actually take them even higher. You just go like, I'm doing way better than I'm used to doing.
Yeah, you're right. That's so fucking interesting. But you started in the crushing rooms.
And it was like rowdy, a lot of hecklers. But, the thing I learned was from the Boston guys is that the crowd, if somebody heckles you, you got to remember that heckler is still on the away team. They're part of the them. And it's you against them. And so you very carefully have to put a big red circle around this heckler and let everybody see that they're a problem, that they're a tumor that needs to be removed before you annihilate them. Because if you go after them on the first thing they say, the crowd goes like, hey, what the fuck, man? He paid money like us. We're just trying to watch a comedy show. But if you repeat what he says and do what Attell did and say one more thing, and let him just give him rope, and then when you go after them, the crowd is on your side.
I didn't do that right this past weekend.
Oh, really?
I didn't do that right. I jumped on somebody. I was in Irvine, and I jumped on somebody way too quick. It was two girls, and they were talking to each other, and I knew they were talking to each other, but no one else did.
Yeah.
And they were sitting in like that, not that first row, but the second row, but right up front. And I said something, and I just jumped on them, and I could feel everyone like tense up, and then I had to almost apologize and get them back on my team.
Yeah.
And then I had to make them a part of the show. And I was like, fuck.
Right.
I forget how little I know about stand-up. I wish I toured more with guys. I wish there was a way to tour with guys so that, like I was saying to someone, I would want to work with Cat Williams, but I want Cat Williams to look at my sets.
Yeah.
Like, I'd like to have insight. I would like someone, what I want is a comedy audit. I want someone to sit, watch my set, and go, all right, I know you've been doing this for 15 years.
That's what I want to do for a living. I really want to, because there's so many comics I think are really great, and I feel like because I've done it for 25 years, I would love to just run around and say, I will go watch you do 5 sets in L.A., and then we'll sit down. I'll take notes on each one, and I'll just give big picture notes, and I'll give you fucking taglines, and I would charge a fee and just do that. And I feel like
I'll tell you how much I'm willing to pay.
How much?
I look at it, if I'm preparing for a special, I would pay you what I made for that special.
Okay. You don't have to pay me that much.
But like, no, I got paid $10,000 for my last special.
I would do it for 5. I would do it for $5,000.
I'll give you $5,000 to do that.
Okay.
I'm gonna get ready for my next special. I'll give you $5,000 to sit and watch my hour
5 times.
5 times.
Right.
And I would. What's sad is you would get done my hour and you'd be like, you only got 30 minutes.
First of all, I got to give you $2,500 back because you've only got a half an hour.
I so badly I wanted someone to, I missed the opportunity, but I wanted someone to watch that machine story when I told it on stage to figure out how to make it fucking shorter.
Right.
Because it's so fucking long.
Oh, and by the way, me saying that I would also need the exact same thing for me. It's not that I know comedy well, it's that I just know that a fresh set of eyes and ears on the material from somebody who you just know has done it for a long time is going to allow you to pull whole sentences out, to add a tagline, to add a transition, to say, you know what, just fucking get rid of this bit because it's not your style. Like, sometimes you have bits that aren't your style of comedy. Yeah. Sometimes you write it. I'll write a joke that's like a setup punchline. And I go like, that's not what I do, but it occurred to me, and it gets laughs, and it starts to become part of your act, and you realize that shouldn't be in my act. I should be talking the way I talk.
That is my biggest problem. Is I find that what I'm doing in my set is I'm doing 20 minutes up front. This is how my act's turned in. I do 20 minutes up front of just I've like anything with sex, anything with mostly just with sex or my wife or my kids up front. Then I tell the machine story for 12 minutes. Then they drop checks. Then I tell stories like fighting a bear, jumping out of a plane with Rachel Ray for the next 20 minutes. And then that's my set. And I feel like I don't know which one's better, and I don't know, because there's this check drop and I have this big story that I have to tell, I don't know how to fucking break it up, and I don't know how I'd tell it in an hour. I don't know if, so, and I feel like it's two totally different comics.
Right.
Like when I talk about sex, I'm talking very quickly off the head and not thinking. When I'm telling a story, it's a little more rehearsed and a little more written.
Yeah, well, I think, though, you can have two different types, don't you?
I think so, but sometimes I wonder, am I doing that front part because there's an immediate payoff? Like, I'm telling, like, ultimately I'm having theories about sex, and it's like, I don't even know. This bit that I did that I thought was really brilliant, I don't even know if it's that good, to be honest with you, is the premise that no guy ever has sex with a woman for the first time. Every time a guy has sex with a woman for the first time, he's just using all the moves that worked on the chicks before us.
Right.
So it's not our fault if you don't like it. And
Right.
then the joke is, if you don't like a finger in your ass, blame Kristen. She's the one that dug it.
She backed up into it.
She was like, yeah, now I thought you guys all like that. You don't like that? And so that's the premise, and then it kind of expounds from there about, like, I don't know. And then in my head, I'm like, this is a complete departure. So when I tell a story of like in the second half, I'm like, when I was 22, I fought a bear. When I was 27, I fought a bear. And everyone's like, what the fuck? When I was 22, I got involved with the Russian mafia. I jumped out of a plane with Rachel Ray. And so it's longer form stories. It's two totally different types of stand-up. So
I like that it's different. I think it's almost like changing gears as you're going faster. You know, it's a different set of skills, it's a different rhythm. I think that you really need a different rhythm at the beginning. Then I can't imagine walking on stage and just doing a story cold.
Like Birbiglia, I watched him do it in Tampa. I think I watched Norton do it too.
Yeah,
and it was like wow.
What's it called? Sleepwalk.
Sleepwalk with me.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And then it's just stories, and Gaffigan is the same way though. He'll tell stories, but he'll also just tell jokes.
Yeah,
I think you can mix it up, but I think that there's there's different facets that you can do up there, and maybe mixing up jokes with your style is
I'm going to take you up. I'm going to take you up on that.
Let's do it.
I'm being dead serious.
All right.
What are you working on now?
I'm doing a series for True TV. It's a thing about like middle-aged guys, a talking head kind of show.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do 12 episodes of that, filming in June. And I don't know when it comes out, but it's just like the rageful middle-aged guys in midlife crises talking about life.
Are you ever nervous about where's the next job coming from?
Yes.
But do you seem like someone who's worked since you were fucking 22 in this business?
I've been extremely fortunate, and it's like I guess the superstitious part of me feels like that means I'm due to have it all end immediately. And then, and you feel like you're getting old, and you feel like, people don't work after a certain age in this town, and you just go, is it this age? Is it next year's age? Because once things slow down, they can just stop, and work. So I've always kept scrambling to keep working because I'm afraid if I'm seen not working, then people think you're the guy that's not working, and nobody wants to give work to that guy.
What is your, like, my wife believes in putting it out there,
right?
Like what you want. And like I've always said, I want a sitcom. I want a 4-camera sitcom.
Really?
I very badly want to force. I really enjoy the process of development, and I love the concept of going to one place every single day and doing a TV show and knowing the camera guys and doing it for 5 years. I'm telling you, I put this out there hardcore. My goal is to always do stand-up, always do Travel Channel, work at Travel Channel for 20 fucking years, have Trip Flip go on for 20. It is the greatest job in the world. I never want that job to end for the rest of my life. I want to write another book, but I want to write fiction. I want to kind of morph into what James Patterson does, kind of.
Jesus Christ!
And then
I've never heard anybody say that before.
And then I want to do.
What do you mean, like have a bunch of ghostwriters? You're writing 4 a year?
No. Actually, no. I wouldn't mind that, because writing a book was so hard. No, I can't explain.
He doesn't write most of his own books.
Yeah, I know, but I'm using him as an example for the way he does his his books. And I'll explain to you
badly.
Off air. No, I'll explain to you off air. But I misspoke, but I spoke correctly. But I misspoke because you're not going to understand what I'm saying, and I have to explain it to you. But I can't explain it to you on the podcast.
Okay.
Everyone might think it's a bad idea, and I won't have time to read it.
Got it.
So and then I want to sit 4-camera sitcom.
Well, it sounds like you're putting a lot of stuff out into the universe, which is good. Something's gotta. But that's what's funny though is that our careers are not like it used to be. You're Nipsey Russell. You're a fucking game show panelist. That's your career. You could do just that, or you're just a stand-up, or now it's like we all have to fucking do a podcast, do a cable show, develop sitcoms, and you constantly be developing sitcoms. Maybe you sell an idea every 2 or 3 years, and you develop that. Yep. And then we got to be doing stand-up on Letterman, and we have to be,
Do an hour special.
Yeah, doing a 1 hour special, writing a book. It's all like we have to keep putting shit. And I hate the word brand, but like it really is. You have to become like a cult of personality in some way.
I hate that too. I hate that so much.
It's so much work. Oh, digital media on top of it. It's just relentless. And you feel like, is this adding up to something? And then you go on the road and you have some good sellouts and you go like, oh, I guess it is adding up to something. But you also realize that if you don't keep feeding that machine, in a year or two, those people are not coming back to see you.
It's fucking. I look at my podcast numbers, and if I don't release a podcast in like every single week, I can see a dip in the numbers of downloads for the next one.
Right. People
just start going, "Oh, I guess you stopped."
Right.
I'm like, no, I was in fucking Brazil.
Right.
Like I couldn't upload anything, and then I started doing doubles, and I look at my daily average starts spiking, and I'm like, fucking doubles it is. I guess I'll be doing doubles. I'd love to. If I was smart, I would have done what Bill Burr did and just done one by myself. So I just go, hey guys, it's Bert. Welcome back.
The guest booking is the worst part of it.
It's the worst, but it's the best because I have a little bit of social anxiety, so I would never talk to you like this at a club. I would never get to ask you all the shit I want to ask you at a club. Or if I did, I would be drunk and you'd be like, oh, here we go.
No, I don't mean the interview. I'm talking about the actual getting the guest booked.
Guest booking is a nightmare.
That is a nightmare.
But if I didn't have guests, I would never get to talk to you or Jen Kirkman.
Uninterrupted.
Yeah.
It's not 5-second snippets interrupted by a guy who did a guest spot on your show 5 years ago that now wants to dominate the conversation. It's like we actually have a real serious talk. It's like what a gift that is with the people you most want to. You invite the people you find the most compelling and interesting and funny, and you sit down and have a fucking talk with them. It's great.
I remember when I first did your podcast, I was nervous because I didn't really know you. And I remember I was standing in your parking lot, and in my head, I had a fucking million things going on. I was like, well, oh my God, what's this going to be about? Like, not probably like we were Stern, but that same kind of thought process. I remember standing out front and Rogan called. And I was like, that's odd. Like, and he just called and I picked up the phone. I was like, hey, he's like, hey, I'm in Hawaii. I heard you doing Greg's podcast. I was like, yeah. He's like, he's a fucking great guy. You're going to have a fucking blast. I was like, really? He was like, you're going to have so much fun. Call me when you get done. And I hung up and I was like, oh.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, Rogan's a different. He's a different.
He is
He's one of the few people in this world that I won't speak for. Like people go, hey, what do you think Joe would think? I go, I have no fucking idea.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
I don't know what he would think. And, and you have conversations with him on this 3-hour podcast. And it's like, I mean, Corolla is similar. Like, they've always got a point of view that they can back up and can back up and can back up and can have an opinion on. And you just go like, wow, this guy is consistently, thoughtful about anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I
mean, I guess Corolla is a little more predictable, but in terms of specific premises for things, whether you talk about a ceiling fan or whether you talk about, freight liners, like he'll have information and an opinion on it.
Yeah. What would be your dream tour if you go on tour with 4 dudes, three other dudes with you?
Who would be on the tour?
Yeah.
Well, what would be great? I mean, we have the same agent, right? You're with Justin?
No.
Oh. Who are you with?
Heidi.
At UTA?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I would like to get guys like us that are in the same vein, big podcasters, like me, you. Well, Rogan would be, a dream, but like Ari Shaffir.
Yeah. Joey's with Justin.
Joey Diaz would be great. Like guys like that, because I feel like we have a lot of similar listeners, but you also have different ones. But if we were to reach out and really make it a podcast tour, and we did like medium-sized venues, say like, 1,200 seats, 1,000 seats, and we did one, a different city, but like a bus tour where you do like, Minneapolis one night, and then you get to, I mean, I can't map it out, but like cities that are a couple hours apart, so you can sleep late, get to the next city in time to have a good dinner, hang out after the show like that, and watch each other's sets, give each other notes, do podcasts as we went along the way. That would be awesome.
And everyone would grow exponentially. I'll do it. I'll fucking scrap all my dates for the rest of the year. You give me any fucking month, I'll do it in a heartbeat.
We should do it.
Do you realize how much ground
Brian
we can cover?
Callen.
Holy God, this would be a fucking monster.
Yeah.
What's the only thing holding us back is agents.
Right.
Is that like We tried doing something one time.
Well, because an agent will want to produce it, which you want. You want somebody to produce it, but then if it's not your agent, then it's...
I'll talk to Heidi. I'll tell her I'll just do it. Heidi will be in. I'm in. You guys, listen.
Maybe Justin can do it.
I'm totally in. What I was thinking, my little pipe dream is I would like to do a podcast cruise where we get a cruise ship out of like Encinitas or something, take it down to Mexico for 3 days, and you have like one night's a big live show with everyone going on. You could probably do 2 nights live shows, different guys. You could do Q&As in the afternoon. You could do live podcasts all throughout the cruise ship. You could have gambling, drinking, and you get all podcast fans to come out to L.A.
I love it.
I'd do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, Jesse Thorne. You know Jesse Thorne?
Girl?
No, it's a guy. He's literally the original podcaster. He started doing it. He had an NPR show, but he was like in college doing NPR, and he's got a couple big podcasts and a show on NPR. And he's doing a thing out of Miami, but it's comedians, bands, and so it's a similar idea. He'd be a good guy to talk to about how to put it together.
I believe in like those. Like I heard Kid Rock had one, and I was like, "Fuck, I could do that." Like because I like to party, so I like a cruise.
Yeah,
I would do that in a heartbeat. I tried to get Travel Channel to do one with all of the Travel Channel talent.
Yeah,
do a Travel Channel cruise, and they were like, "It would be really hard to get everyone's schedules aligned."
Well, it's tough because when do you do it? If you do it during the summer, it's hot as shit, and people are on vacation.
Yeah.
If you do it in the fall, people's kids are in school.
Yeah,
it's really hard. It's a real commitment to do that, but I think it's doable. You know, the LA Podcast Festival has done really well.
Yeah, and
people travel for that.
That's Graham, right?
Right, Graham Elwood.
Yeah, I've never done the podcast festival, but I'm not a good live podcaster.
No,
I mean, because I end up going towards material,
right,
or going towards getting the laugh. I can't just sit up there vulnerable.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to not play to the crowd that's sitting right there.
Yeah, I don't mind doing Doug Loves Movies. And Joey's podcast is really fun to do live.
Yeah.
Because Joey just fucking rants for an hour, and you just sit back and don't say a fucking thing. And then I did someone else's that I said was a really amazing live podcast. I forget who it was. But yeah, let's do that. I'll send an email to you, Ari, Joey, Tom Segura, like all those dudes that are like big podcasters that have all big. We could do a tour, get one tour.
Just got to make sure that everybody's a draw. Because concepts don't sell tours.
Yeah.
Individuals sell tickets. You got to be. It's got to be somebody. If we're going to have 4 guys and 1,000 seats, you got to know that each guy can pull 250 people in a night to a place. Otherwise, it's a bust. These tours can hemorrhage money.
Yeah, and you want to make sure they're similar 250, but not the exact same 250.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the problem is with that is that most podcasters are white men from L.A.
Yeah.
It's hard to get any diversity if you got Aisha Taylor, it would be fantastic because she's probably got a slightly different demographic.
She has to, right?
Yeah. Or, Jay Moore has got the sports demographic, so you and him together would be great.
Yeah. That would be a great tour.
And then maybe Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith would be...
He just came on my podcast 2 days ago.
Really? Is he directing the new Batman versus Superman?
I think part of it.
Shut up.
Something like that. I know he's got a new movie. I can't remember if it's that or it's... No, he's doing something that's like... it's an anti-Christmas. There's some mythic figure in like Scandinavia who comes in and eats children the night before Christmas.
Oh my God! I just... yeah.
And so he's doing something...
Where did I just hear about this? Yeah. There's an I just heard about this,
right?
And I ended up Googling it and sitting online all night long, like everything I could read about this character.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's and so it's like an alien-looking thing.
Yeah.
So he's doing that, and his podcast. He's got so many podcasts under his company. It's crazy.
Are you with a network?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm with Podcast One, which I don't know if you call that a network. They sell ads for our shows. It's me and Corolla.
Is that like Courtside Media?
Right. It's the same company.
Yeah.
And so they bring us all our ads, and but it's not like, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a family. I like to think I'm independent, but they do the sales for me. But I guess in a sense, I am part of the conglomerate.
Yeah. So wait, you never said what your thing was. What you wanted out of life to put in the universe. For you.
I wanted to host a late night talk show my whole life.
Really?
Yeah, I want to, because I love writing jokes, showing up, rolling up my sleeves, look at the news, let's all write jokes.
You have a very unique interview style.
And I'd like to interview people. I would love to interview people every night. I would like to do remote segments. Every part of being a late night host, I would love to do.
And you have very fair boundaries and very fair, not boundaries is the wrong word, very fair views of the world. Like, and I never forget it. You said to me on the last podcast we did, you said, and I've quoted you on this. You grew up in the South. Have you ever said the N-word? And I went, and you went, that's a yes. Now here, and then you said there's a difference between saying it and using it.
Right.
And I'd never heard that. I mean, I'd grown up around people my whole life who had said the N-word, and I'd never heard there's a difference between saying it and using it. And you went on to explain that, and I was like, oh, this is a guy that's actually fucking thought this through. This isn't just some crack fucking pot theory. This is like, you might have written this down into a book one time.
Right. Well, I think that, race, if you think about the topics that guys like us go into, it's the stuff that people don't talk about, and you better have some fucking good thoughts on it, because if you're going to talk about race and homosexuality or age or anything that's an ist, it's like you got to bring something to the table. Otherwise, it's going to sound really trite. And so I think it's an exploration of the things that people won't talk about. And it's a great opportunity, and it's where I think you mine some of the best comedy. Yeah. So, I think it's fascinating to find out what people think about race. You take for granted, like this whole idea that you cloak it in, like everything that happened with Donald Sterling. It's just interesting because he didn't do anything wrong. What he thought he had... the thought police would say it was improper thinking, but he didn't ban anybody from playing on the team. He didn't fire anybody for being on the team. He expressed disgusting thoughts, but they're disgusting to people that are disgusted by them. So what? The fact that we vilified him to the point where he is like the number one pariah in America. How about these fucking guys that have hedge funds that are literally stripping people of their health benefits and their pension funds because they need the corporate earnings to be higher? That's fucking evil. And I don't care if that guy says the N-word or not. He is profoundly affecting the fabric of society, and that goes unchecked.
Yeah. That's very I listened to the Donald Sterling thing, and I was like, I can't believe he didn't know he was getting tape recorded.
Right.
Like, she seems so baity.
Yeah.
Like, she is literally, and it's not like he left it on a voicemail where he knew it. Like Mel Gibson, you're like, really?
Yeah.
You didn't, like, so funny, I've gotten to a place this weekend, some kid came up to me and started asking me about stuff something I didn't want to talk about, and you could tell, and he's like, hey man, I'm not tape recording you. And I was like, that's out there now?
Yeah, right. But also I think it's like, for Donald Sterling, it just occurs to me, like, why are you talking? She is a fuck piece. She's a dumb woman who's way too young for you, who is obviously a gold digger. You know all of that. Yeah. You're an intelligent man who has worked his way to the top of the food chain economically. You don't know that those kind of conversations are to be held in your private clubs amongst other reptilian billionaires.
Lawyer.
Yeah.
He's a lawyer.
Why are you talking this way in front of this woman?
Who is of color.
Right.
That's the other part that's like, she's also questionably not white.
Right.
Like, that blew me away.
Yeah.
I don't say a fucking thing to anyone on the phone these days.
Yeah.
I'll say, and my first thought was just live your life like you're always being recorded. And then I was like, no. How about live your life like a good person?
Yeah. You're right.
Like, how about just always hedge that bet and just be a good person?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's you wonder with the whole political correctness and it's really about, semantics and controlling what sounds come out of your mouth. Is that good or bad? You wonder, is part of it definitely is like what you just said. It makes you say, let me live a good life. But then the other part of it is, I have to live in an ordered way, the way society is telling me to live. And it's not one or the other. It's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Well, it's like we got into a conversation in my backyard with a black dude who was saying the N-word a lot. but he didn't. This is gonna sound. He didn't. He doesn't sound black.
Right.
He sounds white. And so I was like, when you just say that in my head, I'm thinking if my neighbors are listening,
Yeah.
then what's stopping them from recording this, and what's stopping anyone from? How do I prove that he's black? Like, and I was like, motherfucker, can you just sound a little blacker?
Yeah.
Like, but it didn't. No.
Yeah, I need you to validate this. Do you have a rubber stamp?
Yeah. I will talk to you all day, so I'm going to wrap this up because I literally will talk to you nonstop. I have one question: who makes the friends in your relationship, your wife or you? And then who keeps them?
I make them. She solidifies them. You know, I am much more of like the. I think because I'm out in the world more, I guess I bring more new people. Actually, no, that's not true. I double back on that. She brings in people from the school world.
Yeah.
I bring in people from entertainment and otherwise, but not really entertainment, but just guys like college friends that I maintain relationships with. But then people meet her, and she's so incredibly connected when she talks and caring, and she remembers everything about. How's your kids?
She knows everyone's name at school,
right? And
does she know the kids' names at school too?
Oh yeah, but she cares.
Yeah,
she really is a caring person who's a listener, and so when people are around her, they fall in love with her, and she's the reason why they probably hang out with us more.
My wife brings in the friends.
Yeah.
I'm the closer though.
You're the closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the reason they stick around.
Now, what's your move? Because you got your stories you do on stage. All of us have stories that if a new friend, you know that I can launch this story. They never heard it. I'm going to kill.
You
don't use the ones from your act.
No, not
you don't do
remotely.
the I fought a bear with new parents.
No. My move usually is I allow our new friends the opportunity to be a complete and total fuck up around their spouses, and there's no repercussions.
I like it.
So like
you make them feel like this is a fractured, dysfunctional environment where we all accept each other.
We were at a pool party, and the guy, this guy came back. I'm in the back pool house room of our friends, and I'm getting a beer, and he comes back. He's like, "I was told to see you." I go about, and he goes, "I wanted to get high." I was like, "Oh, I don't have marijuana." And he goes, "No, I have it, but I was told that I needed to get high with you." I was like, "Oh, I don't really even smoke marijuana." And he goes, "Well, I don't know why they sent me in here then." And then my wife came in, and she was like, "Oh, you found Bert." And I was like, "Wait, what are you doing?" She's like, "Well, he wants to get high, and if he does it around other people, they're going to fucking say something. But if he does it around you, then it's okay with everyone that he got high." And I go, "But I'm not getting high." And she goes, "Oh, no, I told him that." And he goes, "Oh, I don't think I understood the whole conversation." I'm like, "This is fucking awkward." Like, when we go to children's parties, someone will break out the booze, and they'll go to me first and be like, "Hey, take a shot." And I'll be like, "Oh, I remember one time I had to drive to Ontario." I was like, "I can't. I'm driving to Ontario. I think I might be working with Wanda Sykes in my head."
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So I was like, "I want to be sober." And they're like, for the drive, but to work with her especially. And they're like, "Well, yeah, but if you don't drink, we can't drink."
So you're like pre-approved.
I am the
You're the canary in the coal mine.
Yes, I am the canary in the coal mine. By the way, the best analogy when you were saying this, and I wanted to say this to you, the analogy of white guys like us talk about this or that because it's harder to talk about, and there's more reward. All I thought was the George Clooney movie with Mark Wahlberg where they go out fishing, and he's like, everyone's coming in, but as a comic, you got to be the one boat going out in the storm, going, "Fuck it, I'm going to see if I can come back with a big tuna."
Yeah.
But yeah, I am the canary in the coal mine. If I choose not to drink, oh, it sucks for everybody.
Yeah.
Like I didn't drink at this event. Let's just say we had an event for school, and and people were drinking, and I didn't drink, and they all got in trouble. And someone said, "Had you drank, no one would have gotten in trouble."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, because it's okay if you."
They need you to lower the bar for everybody.
Exactly. I'm like the priest who molests young boys. So when you go to heaven,
what?
Well, it's a joke I used to have about I support priests molesting young boys because I plan on going to heaven too. So when you get to the gates, they're like, "Ugh." They just lower the bar by 5 feet. Right. Do you fuck young boys? No, just a hand job from a stripper. Go ahead.
Right.
So yeah, I'm the priest that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I think that's if you fuck around with your wife at a party in a way that is edgy and free and it shows love underneath.
Yeah.
Everybody starts behaving that way, and like we do this comedy benefit when our kids went to a preschool. And so it was kind of hard to get in, and it's not that it was a ritzy one. It was just, it's this very special teaching philosophy that called the Reggio technique that they got from Italy. And it just was, so everybody that I knew that had gone to that school was very, like, you know, profoundly affected. The kids had been crazy, and now they were normal, and they loved the teachers, and they teach the parents how to parent better, because you don't know what the fuck you're doing when you got a kid in preschool.
Yeah.
And so to get into the school, it was impossible. My friend said, well, they're always looking for a benefit, so why don't you do a comedy benefit? So I threw this comedy benefit, and they loved it, and they let me in. But what I did was, then the second year, once I was in, I started booking the filthiest comics I could find, because I realized these people are used to being around the kids and the teachers all the time. Now it's like parents' night out. Let's blow it out. Let's let them really. So I would book like Louis C.K. Actually, I got Louis' kid into the school. And the way I got him in was I go, come do the comedy benefit. Zach Galifianakis has done it, Sarah Silverman, Jimmy Kimmel.
Holy shit.
And so they come in and they just are raunchy. And people say this is the greatest night of the year for me. It's
really?
Such a release for them. Reese?
Yeah.
It's such a Reese Witherspoon for them.
When I first moved to LA, I was at a cafe, and Reese Witherspoon was sitting at a table, and I didn't know I just thought she looked like a hot chick.
Yeah.
And she was writing in her diary. Total fucking move I would have done in Florida State, and I just kind of leaned over and started reading her diary out loud. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my hey. And she was like, are you reading that? And I was like, yeah. And then I was like, thinking I could parlay it into some sort of icebreaker. And when she turned, I realized that's Reese Witherspoon, and I've just been reading her diary. And she was really offended. And I was like, oh, and I just walked away. I was like, ah. Jones on 6th. It was on 3rd Street. Or Jones on 3rd, is it? Jones on 6th? Yeah, it's over in...
Right on Formosa.
Yeah, so yeah.
Wow.
But, what do you have to plug? Anything to plug?
Well, I got this. I'm doing an episode of Louis. Can I drop his name more in one podcast?
Hey, I talk about fucking Attell or Rogan one more time.
All right. Well, I'm doing an episode of Louis in 2 weeks, which I guess will be the week this comes out. And then this new series called Men Something on True TV. My podcast is Fitzdog Radio.
Yep.
The new 1 hour specials on Netflix. It's called Life on Stage.
And that's done in your hometown, right?
That was done in Tarrytown, New York, in a theater built in 1885, and very
all the
proud
people
of it.
in the stories are in the room too.
A lot of kids I went to school with, my friends and family, they're all there, and it was a pretty special night for me. And I think the special came out okay. And then I got tour dates coming up. If you go to fitzdog.com, I'm coming to Raleigh, North Carolina, Foxwoods in Connecticut.
Ooh. I just left Foxwoods. I had the fucking greatest time.
It's fun as hell.
I had the greatest time.
I could see you doing well there. It's rowdy, fun crowds.
Yeah, I had a blast.
Yeah. And then Seattle, I forget, Phoenix. I got a bunch of dates coming up, so check them out.
Nice, man. Well, I appreciate you doing this, Greg.
Thanks for having me, man. And thanks for saying all the nice things.
No. I try to do what's really fun is like a couple times we've done like Sunday afternoons where we have our kids over, and Joey Diaz will bring his kid over, and and we'll have a bunch of people here and do a podcast in the middle of the party. My wife fucking hates it. Yeah. But it's really fun. So maybe, how old are your kids?
13 and 10.
Oh, that's right out of the. We're. I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay.
All right. I appreciate this, Greg.
All right, man.
Wait. Can you tell everyone that wasn't at the Cowhead Roast what the bit that killed so hard was?
Oh God.
Because that's how we started it. So let's bring it full circle.
Well, Cowhead was who's this? Anyone who listens to your podcast, I'm sure knows him. So his grandmother was there, and I was told that they had matching Yankees tattoos. And I said, but hers shows a lot more commitment because he got his on his shoulder and hers is stamped on her vagina. And it's amazing because, she's got, she put a little mini batting helmet on her clitoris. And she's in the room and she's 88 years old. And I say, and I go, and then she got the pinstripes. Well, actually, those are stretch marks from what's his name? Who's the black first black Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson.
From fucking Jackie Robinson's big black cock. And then she got a dugout put in her asshole, an actual major league dugout. And she brings in 9 guys from a different city every weekend. And they spit tobacco juice back there. And I kept going on about it. And so then...
like at this point, she has stood up in the fucking room.
She stood up and she came to the front of the stage.
She starts walking, but Greg's not... I don't know if you didn't see her.
No, I had finished my set.
Yeah.
As soon as I finished, she walked up and she gave me the finger in front of the whole room. People went fucking crazy. And I went down with the microphone and I said, I didn't know you were still alive. And it was so great. Cowhead was dying.
We were all on the fucking floor. It was the highlight of the night. And then I got up on stage, and it was. I remember I got up to the podium, and everyone was still rumbling.
Yeah,
and they were still rumbling, and I realized how fucking drunk I was. Anxiety sets in of like, I don't have any joke like that. I have no fucking jokes. My only joke was, and then I realized that I hadn't even really thought out my jokes at all. Like I had one. I go, Greg Fitzsimmons is here. I haven't seen something that small and white since the Mars rover. And it doesn't really get a laugh, or it gets like a mediocre laugh, and I go, I don't even know what the Mars rover looks like. And I don't even know if it was successful or not. Like, it just made sense in the joke.
But you were so honest about where you were at in the show that you were drunk and that I had just killed, and you just started laughing, and it all worked.
I literally was like the fourth grader, or I was the first grader who goes up on stage and reads a joke book and is only getting laughs because he thinks the jokes are funny. Right. and it was fucking great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Greg. I appreciate it, man.
All right, thanks for having me.
I'll talk to you later.
This episode was brought to you by The Machine.